So with that, I'll introduce the speaker for today. So Samson is the author for now professor at Michigan. So he has appointments in the College of Engineering, here in the School of Information. He's part of Midas as well. He teaches courses on extreme weather and climate and air pollution modeling. He's also an entrepreneur, so he's co-founder of Weather Underground and Lecture Tools, and he serves as a mentor for education technology internships. So thanks, Perry, again for speaking at MISC, and everyone please welcome Perry Samson.
Thank you very much. I'm going to make the pitch today. I teach a class, I taught this class for a long time. It's my 40th year here in the faculty. And it used to be called Weather and Climate, and it had like 40 kids in it. And my chairman wanted more students in the classroom, so I changed the curriculum some and renamed the course Extreme Weather. And now I have 250 in the class. Put extreme in front of whatever you're teaching, and you're going to people think this is cool. Well, when you're facing that many students, of course, in my job, I teach climate science. Climate science is not popular necessarily with all people at the moment. So my job is to try to engage as many people as possible in this conversation. And in particular, in being engineering and in the sciences, we're always trying to attract those groups that are traditionally underrepresented in the sciences into our field. So what I'm presenting to you today is some analysis of data I've done in my own class, identifying the problems or gender gaps that are occurring in my classroom, and probably your classrooms, and the steps I've taken to overcome that, and my argument being that, that my data is going to be so compelling that you're going to want to add some kind of back channel in your own classes to facilitate then more students participating in class. So, any questions? This is a thing you've probably all done. How many of you are instructors? All right, those of you who are instructors, you know when you're instructing, you ask that question. And the response you get is what I got. You're all eating. It doesn't lead to much conversation in class. In fact, I teach this class, and it seems the bigger they get, the actually more intimidating it is for students to ask questions. So how do we overcome that? So at the beginning of each semester, I run a survey with IRB approval to get some background about my students, their demographics or history, other things that can use me to identify who I'm dealing with. And one of the questions I have been asking now for a few years is this one. How comfortable are you asking a verbal question in a large lecture hall? You can all think about your own answers. Now, you're all professionals. You're probably quite comfortable doing that. But first generation students who are coming here who maybe are underrepresented, and some people just in general are going to be less confident. They're going to be unwilling to offer a verbal question in class for fear that they're going to look stupid, or just fear. So I recorded this and kept track of them. What are the kinds of students who are going to be most fearful, and where are they in my class? So some background in my class is that when I made it extreme weather and suddenly got 250 students, the room only holds 110 seats. So the software that I use allows me to click a button and my classes are automatically broadcast live. So that I let the students choose. Do you want to come to class, or do you want to just sit in your dorm or wherever and still participate? And as I'll show you, it's still a very interactive session. And frankly, my colleagues push back and go, well, look, if the students are not in the classroom, they're going to learn as much. I don't care. I've got tenure. And my point is that I want to give them enough rope. I want them to understand how they learn. So part of the class is, yes, about extreme weather, but a lot of it's just, how am I going to learn best? And so they have to figure out time management, and it should happen, I argue, in college, at least. So my classes broadcast, and they're freely available to decide whether they come to class or not, the first question I ask them every day in class is, where are you? And they report back where they are, with no loss of credit for not coming to class. Again, all these are experiments going on about how important is it to be physically in the room versus otherwise. So that's sort of a backdrop on how I'm conducting this class. And by the way, a couple weeks ago they canceled all classes at the University of Michigan. Do you think I canceled extreme weather? I did not. But with this software, I was actually in Washington, D.C. I was able to beam it out, and the students were all in their dorms or wherever, and they're all able to interact with me, and I could ask them questions, they could ask me questions, and class went on. As usual, we talked about the polar vortex. So, the day of, well, one imagines the day coming where maybe we want to take more advantage of the fact that some parents, single parents, for example, can't make it to class with a sick child. Why are they, why should we diminish their educational opportunity? So how can we use technology to expand? Here are the results I got back on that question. And you can see on the graph here that for the male students, it's about half of the students that disagree with that statement, that they're comfortable, and half agreed. But for the female students, far a number were uncomfortable asking verbal questions in class. And I didn't know this before, but it clearly makes an uneven playing field. So in this case, in fact, there's a big number here that strongly disagree. The ones who are least confident asking a verbal question, very much 29% for the females, 17% for the males. So there's this uneven amount of comfort or confidence in the classroom. So this is the place where technology can play, I think, an important role and help engage more of the class in activities. We'll be quizzed on this later. The important numbers here, this is over the 5 semesters I've studied. I'm going to point out a couple numbers here. You see, first of all, my class is male-dominated, which may also add intimidation to females in the class that are less willing to participate. I'm not sure, but that's the demographic. It's not uncommon in any to have that sort of division. There's some percentage, maybe 10% of the students who claim to be first generation in class. So I was a first generation student. When I went to college, there was no way I was going to ask a question. I didn't think I belonged there. Arguably didn't belong there. But nonetheless, so are they going to be more nervous? Also, students from English is not their native language. There's some portion of my class who are maybe, again, less confident, but are they less likely to ask questions in class and participate? So that's the backdrop on this. Now the system that I used, and it was mentioned, I created a system called Lecture Tools some years ago for this very class so I could have interactions with my students. And then it was licensed by its company Echo 360, and we have representatives in the room from that company today. You can talk to them. But with the system, it's inside of Canvas, and you can add it to your class. It's under navigation. You can just add it to your class if you want to here. And this system allows you to share your slides with the students and interact with your students. It's kind of like clickers on steroids. So you can share your slides, but you can also ask questions, all kinds of questions of your students with this system, as I'll show you in a moment here. So here are the parts that the student would see in that system. First of all, I'm sharing my slides here. They can view the slides I'm presenting in class. They can see in this window what's being projected on the screen. So if you're sitting at home, just so you can see what's being projected. You can see there's also a camera in my room. I could argue whether there's any value in that. But there's a camera in the room so you can see if I'm gesturing or something, at least what's going on. I didn't click any one of these to blow it up and make the big window here. It's up to the student. So in this way, at least I'm sharing, here are my slides, so I'm going to go to talk about. And again, it's being streamed so they can hear it where they are. Often in the classroom, obviously, they don't need to have the stream on. And they can take notes in the right window. I'll come back to that a little bit later because it's kind of creepy out, of course, because I'm recording everything the students do during class. It's like putting a probe in them, so I know if they're in class, I know if they're taking notes, I know if they're answering my questions, I know if they're getting questions right, and all this is being recorded. And I'm not going to talk about that today, but we use that data to then forecast student grades. And by the end of week 3, I can forecast with pretty high accuracy who's going to fail my class. It's 80% accuracy. So I don't know what to do about that, but I can, we're getting to the day that you should be able to predict, and this is important, maybe not so much in Michigan, but this is being used by apparently 2 million students worldwide. So if we're in a community college or a smaller school where retention is a big issue, can we identify students earlier before the first exam who are going to be in trouble? And then figure out some intervention to be effective. That's for you guys in school information to figure out. I can at least collect the data and present it to you. And if you're an instructor, all this data you freely download from the system. Also, I can do formative assessment in the same window where I can pose questions to the students as classes go on to see if they understand what I'm talking about. It's metacognition. Do you understand what you don't understand? So by asking this, I can ask many more kinds of questions than you can with a clicker. We'll show you an example in a moment. And again, take notes and all the other stuff at the same time. So here's some examples of the kinds of questions you can use in the system. Here's a just straight up multiple choice question. What conditions make the atmosphere less stable? And yay, most of my students got the answer right. But in this system, and when you create a question like this, you click a button and it requires the students to tell you why did you choose that number. And I'm going to argue that's more valuable than the ABC answer here. Because then, now I go click on, say, the letter B, and it's going to show me the justifications for the students who chose the letter B, and I can comment on that. Well, are you getting the answer right for the right reasons or the wrong reasons? And it's giving them valuable feedback, because eventually, we're going to have exams, and I'm going to be grading them, so they want to hear how I'm thinking that question through. And I can point out there's no names on here, so you can not start making fun of people. Like, oh boy, that's mini copy. It's just inadequate answer. And oh, this one is getting there, but you haven't really added enough information. And I can walk them through the kinds of information I'm looking for. So it's more of a conversation now, as opposed to me just lecturing. Any questions?
Yeah. Just to clarify, it looked like that was a drop down, but that's not. That's their free response answers to your question of why did you choose it.
Yeah, for the kids who chose B. So if you design your questions right, then you can uncover misconceptions. So the hardest part of this is coming from good questions. Another question type that I use a lot being a meteorologist is our image-based questions. So here's a map of every hurricane, typhoon, or cyclone since 1950. And I posed the question to the students, well, what part of this image does not make sense to you, and why? Boy, this surprised me, because I didn't expect to do this. But what happened next is the students answered in buckshot, just all over the place. And so I thought I'd be a wise guy and pick on the kid who picked the middle of South America. And they asked the question, why are those storms coming off the coast of South America? Well, I hadn't expected to talk about that, but that's a great question. You get all these hurricanes in the North Atlantic, what's going on down here? Why not? So that led to a conversation I didn't expect to have. And in fact, that day, the lecture was now no longer scripted. It was all about student inquiry leading to discussion. So this became a far more interesting class for me, and I hope for them. Other dots over here, like why are there no hurricanes along the equator? I was hoping for that question. There's no Coriolis force here, hence the storms don't learn to rotate yet. You have to get a certain distance away from the equator before you form tropical storms. So you can see how you might use this in whatever class you're teaching with graphs and imagery, and engage the students in asking questions about it, which leads, I would argue, to a more rich conversation. Among the measures I get out of the system, one of them is simply I'm asking questions, and I can indicate what the right answer is, and I keep track of whether the students are getting the questions right or not. Well, this is a very powerful tool, and like, duh. If they're getting the questions right during class, they're probably doing pretty well on the exam. And if they're not doing well during class, apparently they don't take the time to learn the stuff because here if you got more than 60% of my questions right, you average 93 on my test. If you got less than 30% right, you're going to fail. So, whatever, if you're using clickers or using this system or whatever you're using, get those measures because there's value in that and identifying the students who are in trouble far earlier in the semester. All right, that's not what we're going to talk about today. The thing today is this. The other button on this in the window for the students is up here, and that little window lets them ask questions. And there's a bunch of windows up here. You see, they can ask questions, review questions up here. They can bookmark content. I think this is important. You bookmark that, and the bookmark winds up showing up in their notes over here. But when they pose the questions stream into a window here on the right. And this Backchannel has become a valuable part of my class because the students are, all right, I've got 250 students and they're giving me one GSI. And that poor GSI sits there in class and answers the questions from students, basically doing spin control on what Perry said. Well, what he meant to say was, and he's writing a thesis. I mean, he's just sitting there typing the whole time class is going on. But the beauty of this is that the students are asking questions, and either the GSI answers it or other students can answer the question, but you don't see any names here. Now, fearlessly, you can start asking the questions you might not otherwise ask. You're going to get an answer. Everyone sees the questions and the answers, but they don't see who asked the question. The goal here, hypothesis is if you get this in your entry-level courses, and you begin to see that your questions are no dumber than anybody else's questions, do you then, in subsequent semesters, get the more courage to ask verbal questions? That's where I'm hoping this goes to. But at least the students who are shy and otherwise uninvolved are willing to have a conversation here about these questions. And to be fair, these questions aren't always about the content. Sometimes the logistics in the course, when's the next exam going to be, other sorts of questions pop up. You have far fewer students at office hours because they're asking and getting answers during class when they have the question. So you've made the class far more engaging and at least more participatory. Students have more ways to participate in class of asking questions, responding to my questions, etc. So it's just trying to open up more ways for people to have conversations. So I'm going to stop here and ask you if you have any questions.
Do you have support for peer instruction?
Peer instruction being when you have students talk to each other?
Well, so peer instruction, usually there's a multiple choice question. People answer individually, often with clickers.
Yeah.
And then they discuss with each other, then they answer again.
Yes. Yes, well, because what you do is you have them answer the questions, and you can look at the answers yourself, and you decide that they're not all getting it right. It's a good time to say, all right, in groups of 2 or 3, I want you now to debate it among yourselves, and then we'll answer again, and you'll be able to show the answers after that.
Yeah, so more the question was, does your system allow for you not to show what the right answer is right away so that they have a chance to discuss?
Yes, yeah, definitely want that.
So in the data that you showed about, your assertion is that you can help in particular students who aren't comfortable asking questions verbally in class. Can you do you tie the questions in that online version to their individual student data so you know who the students are who are also comfortable or instead comfortable of using the type?
Yeah, the data set, well, first of all, the question is about whether you're comfortable or not. That's in a survey, so that's a separate.
No, I know.
So I've got this, I wrote code, so I take in that survey and takes in the data coming from this system, combines the two, so yes. So I know which students reported not being comfortable at the beginning of the semester, and then I track how they participated as the semester goes on.
That was my question, whether those students who were the ones not comfortable out loud were the ones hanging in the box.
Hold that question for 2 slides.
I'm wondering if you've had to deal with some of the nastier aspects of anonymous communications.
Good question. I didn't point this out and should have. The students don't see who asked the question, but I know. And I tell them that I know. I won't tell them once. So no, I've never had a problem.
Can you talk a little bit about, if you keep using the word, I want to have more discussion and conversation, what does that actually look like in the classroom?
Well, and this is, again, with this many students, or half of whom aren't even there, it winds up being that this conversation is part of it is I'm able to ask them questions, and they respond. I'm able to show their responses on the screen, and then respond to their responses. So it's sort of a conversation, quotes, all right? The other part is the students are posing questions, and largely my GSIs, they're answering the questions, but then the GSI is filtering. If something is really standing out, it's like, Jerry, you really got to cover this again, then he or she will let me know. I don't, you could, I suppose, in a smaller class, be watching that screen yourself, but I can't multitask. If I will look at those questions after class. And the other thing I didn't show you, go back a slide, thanks for that, is up here, there's another button up here that indicates confusion. So I call it the WTF button. What's he talking about? And you click that button, and you're indicating to yourself that I don't understand this at all. And that marks your notes to that effect. It also sends a signal to my computer in front of the room. I have a meter showing me how many people are confused. No, I ignore that. After class, it records which of the slides where the students are most confused. And I can use that to go back and maybe cover something again.
Are you able to use that information about the student confusion to change the slides from year to year then? And it's like, do you constantly get new information based on that, or?
Yeah. In theory, one would.
Okay.
Yeah, no, after 40 years, I pretty much know where they're going to be confused. It's just things I apparently don't explain well.
Does the student answering the questions, do they ever stop you in class and say, like, there's one thing that maybe you should address yourself?
Oh, yeah, and that's a good point, is you don't want to stop verbal questioning. And I would say that the number of verbal questions I get in class hasn't changed with this addition. There are still some students who are willing to raise their hand and ask questions, and I still encourage that. But the point is the rest of the class. I want everyone to have a voice and be able to ask the questions. Now, sometimes the questions are quite similar, so they can just answer one, which answers all of them. But yeah, you'll still get that response in class. And yeah, I'm confusing enough to make that happen a lot. So remember back in the beginning, I showed you that the female students were less confident, less comfortable at least asking verbal questions compared to the male counterparts. So here again, for the last 5 semesters, and the number of students each semester at the top, the number of students asking questions, and so the number of students posing questions per semester is averaging somewhere around 50%. And that's, by my measure, that's pretty good. Getting half the class to ask questions is actually a big improvement on what it was before I started using the technology, where you might get a handful of students asking questions, and usually male students near the front of the class. Number of questions asked. There's a sobering part here. So in the past, if you had any questions, nothing would happen. I just assumed I had so nailed the lecture that I did a little victory dance in the front of the room and throw the chalk down. Celebration. I'll explain what chalk is later for the younger people. But now, oh my gosh, it's averaging something like 600 questions a semester. Students are obviously participating at a higher level than they used to, because they have more options and ability to do that. So for me, that's a huge step. And again, teaching climate science, I want people to be involved. I want people to ask questions. And this allows that to happen. And the number of questions students are asking. So, I just broke it down here by number of questions per student. So, maybe a third ask one question, but you get some out here, another 10% will ask more than 8 questions over the semester. It's a range. Each student has different levels of inquiry in the class. And the big news here is, well, here's another piece of news. Looking at their exam scores. And the circle here is how many is the percent of students asking questions. The student who got 50, who failed basically my course, was asking as many questions as the student who got 90. That's part of the news. The bigger part of the news is the students who got 90, they're asking more questions. So this is the kind of data the system gives you back that you can use. I don't know what to do with it, but it's the kind of data then I can show to my students at the beginning of a semester and say, well, here's from lessons learned, what happened in the past. It might be helpful then for you to be asking more questions because it seems to help the student. And yay, this is again over the 5 semesters, so the percent of students asking questions is such that the female students are now asking more questions actually than the male students. So finally, at least the playing field is level. Everyone is participating at a higher level. For all these reasons, I don't care what you're teaching, if you're teaching an entry-level course, you've got these students in your class. And why wouldn't you want them to have a voice? So why wouldn't you add a back channel? We'll get to that in a moment. But this is good news that we can invite more to participate in the activities in class. Then I thought, okay, I then sent a survey out to every student who took my course over those 5 semesters, those graduate from my course now, and sent them a survey to see, ask them 2 questions here. To what degree do you think having the ability to ask questions digitally in class was a benefit for class? And that's the square circles here. And a scale from 1 to 5. And so you can see that most of them, up here, 80% or so, said, yeah, it was beneficial. And then the second question is, to what degree do you think having the ability to ask questions anonymously in class is of value? And that's even higher. More than half of them said it had huge value. So why aren't we doing it? This is my challenge at the university is, we sort of just brush these kids under the rug. They're not willing to participate, then heck with it. I argue that no, we have to give them more opportunities to participate. And if you give them more opportunities to participate, they will. And it's on us to make that happen. And then I asked them this question. To what degree would you have wanted this option in other courses? And 39% said, we like all classes so I can review the answers. I would, but only in large classes, 35%. I would in all lectures, but maybe not discussion and lab sessions. No, I wouldn't. So it was 97% said, yes, I do, at least for the large intro courses. And we're not doing it. So I'm here to make the pitch at the University of Michigan. It's time for us to stand up, whether it's the Echo 360 or whatever, Piazza, whatever, somehow to add channels so that students can have a back channel for conversation in class. And this question next was, to what degree do you think having the ability to ask a question digitally in 50102 changed your willingness to ask questions verbally in subsequent courses? And some, maybe close to half said, yeah, it did. I can't believe this. It's self-reported, of course, and yeah, of course I was willing to ask a verbal question, so I haven't followed this. But this is my next research question, is how can I do longitudinal studies and actually measure these students down the road if you offer these opportunities? Now, for example, in the College of Engineering, we get quite a drop in female participation as we get higher and higher in grade level. And that drop-off is disappointing to us. So, my hypothesis is that we started offering in the first year courses the ability to have this back channel so that everyone would have a voice, be able to ask their questions and feel a bit more, gain some confidence that their questions are worthy. And if we offered it maybe even the second year courses, is there going to be a channel of students who can then follow that path with the back channel availability, and we would wind up getting more students underrepresented in engineering to make it into the third year. That's a hypothesis that is yet to be tested, but that's my next challenge. So, summarizing what I've shown you so far, first of all, the reasons to require Backchannel. I use the word require, underline it. Half or more students profess to be uncomfortable posing verbal questions in a large lecture hall. Almost 30% of female students profess to strongly disagree with the statement, when I have questions, I'm comfortable asking them verbally in class. It's compared to 17% for male students. So it's an uneven field. Number 3, the availability of anonymous Backchannel over half the students, with the availability of anonymous Backchannel, over half the students pose questions. Yay! They are engaged, they're participating. With the availability of anonymous Backchannel, female students ask as many questions as the rest of the class. First generation students ask as many questions as the rest of the class. Students from English as not their native language ask as many questions as the rest of the class. You level the field. Everyone can ask questions. And they may be dumb questions, for sure. But that's okay. Let them ask dumb questions and get a response. That's all we need them to participate. 5, the longitudinal study shows a very, very strong support that anonymous Backchannel should be included in every large lecture course from the students who took my course. And the longitudinal study also showed that the evidence of a Backchannel in an intro course changed the students' willingness to ask questions verbally in subsequent classes. So there's 6 reasons I'm offering to you for why we ought to think about how to add Backchannels into the large lecture halls on campus here as a way for students to participate at a higher level. Questions about this?
So there, as I understand, there was no requirement, like you had a bunch of people that only asked one question, which seems surprising to me over an entire semester. Like, why would they, if they were willing to ask a question, how would they only have one question in the entire semester? But there was no, I just wanted clarity, there was no benefit to ever asking a question.
None. Well, except one semester. There was one semester I asked them, everybody asked a question. That's why you probably saw in that one graph there was one.
So that was the winter 2017
Yeah.
start.
Given the complexity of formulating a question when you don't understand something, and you're doing it verbally, where the person can negotiate with you in order to get your meaning and sometimes actually make the question for you. When you're submitting written questions like that, how do you make sure that the responder is negotiating for meaning?
Yeah, that's a good point. So I have to train the GSI each semester about how to make that, and it's not just, don't just answer the question, come back with a question, and make it more of a conversation. And that's just a matter of walking through some techniques to do that. But you're right, and that adds value to learning experience and engages them more in discussion. Now, in a moment, I'm going to talk about the reasons why you wouldn't want to do this, and it's related to one of that point.
Have you thought of extending this to outside of the class, like for homework questions or just in general?
So if you're doing homework, be able to chat as well? I hadn't. But the echo people are in the room behind you, so they hear that.
I know a lot of people use Piazza.
Yeah, yes.
People are definitely doing it. To some degree.
As long as you know who else is in the class.
Yeah.
So I noticed that your data went down the last semester. Any reason why that happened? You know?
Yeah, I saw that myself. I would like to believe I just got more clear. But I don't have a good answer for that. Maybe I should offer that some of the questions on there, as I said, are logistical. And so some of the students are watching from home. And so at the beginning of the semester especially, you get a lot of questions simply about technology. You know, oh, my internet isn't working, what's going on, kinds of questions. So I think the technology's gotten better, so maybe that's part of the answer, but I can't say that's true.
Do you keep around these questions so that they can see previous semester's questions?
Another good question. Do I keep these questions around? These questions are hugely valuable, and you know, 600 a semester over 5 years, that's 3,000 questions. And yeah, I've got this big database of questions. And so I've got some students, not here, I've got some students, Europe students right now, who are taking those questions and we're programming them into Alexa. So all the questions students have asked over the years, the students could just simply ask Alexa to ask the question, and Alexa will be able to respond with the responses we had. And that way, I'm going to replace myself here shortly. We call it retirement.
Do you still get paid? After Alexa gets paid?
That's a nasty question.
I mean, you're the one creating it.
I was just curious, like, say for example, you see a certain pattern in types of questions that a student may be asking, like showing increasing sophistication and perhaps revealing that perhaps they might be good at research and, you know, they might, well, want to consider that even though maybe they might not be in a demographic that you normally see that level of interest in research, that type of data.
Again, that would be a good thing to do. And I should be doing that. That's a good point. No, I mean, this is very rich with all sorts of data, and it comes down to just how much energy do I have at the end of the day to use all this.
So students are typically coming in, these are probably mostly first-year students, I guess, going to class. They're used to coming from largely being taught at and given the information, and there's no culture around that. And I know we have students who actively complain sometimes when they're told, oh, you have to do active learning, you have to like work with your colleagues. And they don't understand the value in that. So I'm just curious, like, do you have any ways that you help develop that culture? And like, what is the support and
Good point. And so I give, first of all, also part of my class is I let the students decide how they're going to be graded. And at the beginning of the semester, you can choose exams will be anywhere from 60% to 90% of your grade. Participation in my questions is 10 to 30% or something. There's some ranges. Homework a certain range also, so you can not do any homework you don't want to, up to 7%. I let the students just decide before the semester begins, before the first exam, how to do that weighting. But part of that is participation. So, and the way I word it is, look, if I go to the trouble of asking a question in class, it's probably for a good reason. And it's a question you're going to see perhaps later in the exam, or the type of question. So I'm giving you big hints by doing these, so I expect you to participate in them. So the incentive is, if I ask, say, 5 questions in class and you answered 4 during the class session, you get 80% for the day. Not whether you get it right or not, but just whether you participate in the question. And with the system, the questions are hidden until I get to them, so I uncover them, and then after I'm done with the voting, I turn them off so you can't vote anymore. And that way, I'm incentivizing you to keep up in class. This also gets really creepy in that system that they physically advance the slides on their screen as I'm advancing the slides in the front of the room. And I've always got the pushback, well, why not just have it automatically advance? Well, no, I'm going to have you advance it, and that way I'm keeping track of what's the time lag between when I change the slide and you change the slide. And in effect, I'm coming up with a measure of attentiveness. So if I show 30 slides and you only saw 15 of them, that I'm not grading you per se, but that goes into the forecasting of what they're going to grade they're going to get in the class, and winds up being an important factor. So I know whether the student's being attentive or not. And when Johnny walks in and says, I'm trying so hard in your class, I can pull up the data sheet. No, not really.
Are you sharing that information with your students about how they're doing compared to the rest of the class?
Yes, I am. And here's the way I've done it. If you need help with this intervention. So again, as I say, I know early on how students are doing. So what I've done is I send them an email, which I'll be doing, in fact, over the weekend. I send them an email, and then I say, hi, John. each one's very personalized. Hi, John. And it says, here's the grades you've gotten so far. Here's the number of days you came to class. Here's the number of days you watched from home. Here's the number of notes you've taken, a long list. And here are graphs from previous semesters showing how each of those is related to grades, which I call the price sheet. And, well, what are you willing to spend? Because here from history is how people's grades are affected by their behaviors. And then, of course, I'm able to measure, do their behaviors change from the moment I send that email to after that. And I did that last semester, and there was a big rise in student participation in note-taking and watching the videos after class after that email. Now, whether it's due to that email or not, I don't know. Whether it was the data or simply that, holy crow, he knows what I'm doing. Fear of God in them. But data is powerful stuff, and you can start at least sharing with the students. There's an e-coach on campus that also tries to do this. And I've tried to figure out how to build this in the e-coach, but it just seems too complicated. So that's my entire intervention strategy at the moment.
So Perry, I'm pretty sure you don't grade on a curve, right?
I do not.
Right, so have you noticed, since you've been employing more and more of this technology in class, is your grade distribution changing?
I've not even studied that because the exams change so much from year to year. The grading is by different students every year, and I wouldn't believe it if it wasn't trend. It's just
Yeah, I mean, it will be
variables.
messy data, but the ultimate idea of all these kinds of technologies is we can help more students be better students. And if you take that to the extreme, that means everybody in your class gets an A, which some people are happy with and some people think is the wrong, then we should change the grading because we're grading too easy. But I just wondered if,
I can look at it, as I said, there's
It's
so
messy.
many variables that
well,
it's hard
and
to.
final course grade is not the best outcome measure.
No, I was just looking maybe, first exam is changing. I would
Or
look-
change from first exam to next exam,
Yeah.
change score or something.
Yeah. I should also point out my exams are open book, open computer. It used to be called a friend. The point being, if you can just memorize a fact, it's not interesting. So the exams are such that you have to put information together, and what happens is the grades drop dramatically when I instituted this because students assume walking into class would be way easier. And in fact, it's a lot harder because you now have to organize your data and understand your material to then know where to go get the information. And so again, because I'm trying all sorts of things in the classroom, things change. All right, the reasons you might not want to do Backchannel. And I represent myself here. I don't want to be interrupted. So you have these questions coming in. Please, I'm delivering God's gift to you, and you are interrupting me. There is that attitude, not by anybody in this room. I'm just saying it exists on campus. And students be distracted. So that going back to one of the points you made was. All right, so you have to sit and think about making a question during that time. You're not necessarily listening to what's going on in class. Is that bad or good? I would argue that there's, in any 50-minute class, there are probably some, 10-ish minutes at least where I would call it filler. There's opportunities in class where you can formulate a question and things that he's talking about some experience he had in his life, So you can go ask that question now. And the students are able, I think, to do that. No one's complaining that they feel like they're missing out on a lecture because of the writing questions. They like having the ability to ask the question. It will take extra work to monitor the question threads. And again, I would argue that maybe if you're teaching it, GSI, and you can help do that, that's a great activity for them to be doing during class, and they build a better relationship then with the students, because they know who's asking the question as well. And it's helpful to me to go back and monitor, looking after class, just to see what kind of questions are coming in. And there'll be off-topic comments. That was one of the questions you asked, and that there aren't, because they know that I know who's asking the question, and if they say something inappropriate, then they know they're going to get feedback. So, but they pose questions, and among the students, they don't see who's asking the question. Yes?
So I guess I've done a little bit of backchannel support through Slack in a smaller class. And it wasn't so much that there was off-topic comments that led to me saying, hey, you can't say that in class. But they had a lot of fun with GIFs and other responses to things that I was covering, which was maybe not so inappropriate, but not really on the topic of the course itself.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if you get that here, or maybe the fact that this doesn't support GIFs is...
It doesn't support GIFs. And we're not about to.
Yeah.
Hearing that comment now. Yeah, I guess you have to decide yourself. I would imagine if in such a case you just make a comment to the class that this is getting off task.
Yeah, cough, cough. And
most students will respond to that.
Yeah, it was. I don't think there were any cases where it got totally divergent from at least my control of the classroom, but I do wonder how often it happens in a larger class, because this was maybe 30 people at the time, 40 people, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I can imagine with 250, there's...
When I first made lecture tools, I had the back channel built into it, and I wasn't smart enough to make it so that I knew who the author was, and things got out of control quickly, and became, I was trying to do a lecture, people was laughing at various jokes that are flying. We shut that down after a week, and fixed that problem.
Fair enough.
All right, in the last couple of minutes, I've given you my spiel for why I think we ought to have back channels in large classrooms. If you have questions about this, I'm happy to answer those. But I'd also like to show you something new that, as they say, oops, well, I guess it shouldn't be the end of the show, but, all right. Let me just put it this way. I will go back for a couple of minutes here to a slide where I can go back to the fact that students can take notes. Where was it? Oh, there we are. Students are taking notes, and well, in fact, I can do this. Let me, if you don't mind, I can. This is what, Windows. It was a Windows. All right. So let me just say it in words. So right now, the Echo system not only is doing everything I just showed you, but as of this semester, it's automatically going to transcribe what you say in class. So this transcription happens, and then on the screen, the student after class would be able to go in, and they'd be able to see the discussion that was going on during class. On the right side, it's going to have the transcript from class moving down the screen as class progresses. And on top of that, you can, what's that?
This transcription of you talking?
Exactly. And that's available like an hour after class. This machine, and so it's sometimes humorous, but it's pretty good. And it's good enough that you can now search. You can search for like relative humidity, and it'll show you the place in the video where that happens. So the student will be able to search for specific terms and go to that spot in the video with that caption. So that's available now in the system. On top of that, the research problem I've got started is that now I've got the transcript coming from class, I've got the notes the students have written, and we're combining that and doing artificial intelligence with that purpose to figure out what the hell is class about. And once we figure out, we now have a summary of what we think class is about, and having that, then we can do things like automatically provide a list of other resources the students would probably want to study or review based on what was talked about in class today. Now, the reason I'm doing this is that the system I just showed you requires that I go from person to person around campus and convince you ought to try to use this technology in your class. That doesn't work. We all have our own ways of teaching, and we're not about to change the way we teach. So the end around here is that this new system is called students basic. And the transcripts are coming from the lecture. The students are able to search the transcripts. They're able to connect. They automatically connect to their textbooks. They're going to connect to other resources in Canvas that they might be using. It's basically a contextual search engine where the context is gleaned from the transcript coming from class and the student's notes. The student notes, in effect, are a transcription. They're taking the notes and they're filtering by what they think is important. So by using that, you actually make the transcript more accurate. And on top of that, then you get some idea what class is about and can make these links then to other resources the student should know. So my hope is here that we can advance to the student maybe better tools for study. And if you, in your notes, if you took only a few notes, you're only going to get relevant links to the things you took notes about. If you take lots of notes, you get exposed to all sorts of other information that's germane to that class. So the sneaky part here is to get students to take more notes, because the more notes you take, the more help the system will be giving you. If you're interested in participating in that research, we expect to have that up and running probably around January of this year. It's an exciting opportunity to think about how we use artificial intelligence to make sense of what's going on in the classroom. And the other part of this middleware is that now it could be in your textbook. You click on a word in the textbook, it'll open up your own instructor talking about that concept. So you can see how it would link multiple resources together through one system. All right. Any other questions today? And if you want to ask more questions about Echo 360, the three people in the back of the room there are the representatives who are here, including the project manager.
Product manager.
Product manager, thank you. He was here from North Carolina. Thank you very much.